Hello children, a very warm welcome again to the virtual session. So today we are going to continue writing journal for the same experiment which we have discussed in our previous session, that is experiment 3. I will just briefly go through the experiment which we have already discussed. You are going to write it in your journal. This session is repeated for you to get sufficient time to complete your journal. And the rules for the journal will remain the same as was instructed in the previous experiment for journal writing. So the basic instruction for the journal will remain same. Blank side will be the diagram. Rule side you have to write down aim, materials required, procedure, observation, conclusion and all that. And you have to draw margin on the right hand side to make your journal more presentable. So you have to adhere to those instructions, children. And after this experiment discussion, today again continue, I'll repeat the experiment so that you will get time to write your journal and draw diagrams as well. And after this, you are going to have a video on the demo of this experiment, a short video. You want to see how this experiment is done in the lab. Since we can't go to the school lab now, so we can see a demo on this, how actually this experiment is done in the lab, and it will clarify your doubts in your theory part as well. So please do watch the video after this experiment, children. Okay, we'll just briefly go through it to show that heat travels through metals by conduction. This is your aim of the experiment, and you have written down the date of the previous session in your journal, in your index. On top of the first, you will start, before you start with the aim, you are going to write experiment 3. So you have to show that heat travels through metals by conduction. Materials required will be aluminium rod, iron nails, wax, clamp, burner. This we have already discussed. Theory was conduction is the process of transfer of heat from hotter end to the colder end of an object. The transfer of heat by the process of conduction takes place only in solids. This all you know this. You are going to have your doubt session will be clear with the demo video which you are going to see after this. Procedure: take an aluminium or iron rod, fix some iron nails at equal gap with the help of molten wax, clamp the rod to a stand, heat the free end of the rod with a burner or a spirit lamp. Spirit lamp is a lamp made of alcohol. It has some alcohol as a fuel. And then observe the iron nails. In the lab, we normally use a burner which is already fixed in the chemistry lab. So now this is your procedure which you are going to follow for this experiment. Then you are going to draw this diagram. Either I had discussed with you in the earlier session. If this is convenient to clear to you, you can draw a neat label diagram, or the one which second one. This diagram will also be you can do. So you can draw this any one diagram on the blank side. Then observation, what you observe: nails near to the free end of the rod falls down first, then next, and finally the farthest from the flame drops at last. So this is your observation, what you observe after performing the experiment. Then after observing this, what do you think, what do you conclude? That heat travels in metal in the form of conduction from one part to the other. In the form of conduction means without the actual movement of the particle, the heat gets transferred from one particle to the other in solids. This is conduction. And precaution you have to take, that you heat the aluminium rod properly, uniformly at one end only, so that heat is not spread everywhere and you will not get observation which is being expected. So you will get a proper observation. You have to fix the iron nail at equal distance, so that again your observation and your conclusion will not get affected. So these two precautions also you have to write in the journal. I hope the journal work is very clear with you, children, with the diagram. Thank you, children. Do watch the demo video. It is very interesting, and you will come to know how this experiment is done in the lab. And you will get you have got one more session to complete your journal work. I hope you are going to complete your journal work. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Conduction. In this module, you will learn how heat is transferred by the process of conduction. Bet you have seen food being cooked in a pan. When a pan is placed over a burner, the contents of the pan become hot. Why? This is because heat flows or gets transferred from the burner to the pan. The flow of heat through a solid is known as conduction. Let us try to understand conduction with the help of a simple activity. For the activity, you need an iron rod, a stand, some iron nails, a candle, and melted wax. Now fix the iron rod on the stand as shown. Then dip the head of the iron nails in the melted wax and stick them at equal distances on the iron rod. Then light the candle and place it at the other end of the rod. Wait for a while. What do you observe after a while? The nail closest to the candle will fall off the rod first, then the next nail, and so on. Thus, heat energy gets transferred from a hotter region to a colder region. But how does heat transfer occur? When a solid is heated, the molecules at the heated end start vibrating and transfer the energy to the next molecule. Thus, heat energy spreads uniformly throughout the rod. During conduction in a solid, heat is transferred along the body of the solid from one particle to another without the movement of the particles. Hence, conduction is defined as the flow of heat through a solid without the actual movement of the solid. Do all substances conduct heat the same way? No. Substances that conduct heat well are called good conductors of heat. Generally, all metals are good conductors of heat. And substances that do not conduct heat are called poor conductors of heat or insulators. In this module you've learned conduction is the flow of heat through a solid from a hotter region to a colder region without the movement of the solid. During conduction in a solid, heat is transferred along the body of the solid from one particle to another without the movement of the particles. Substances that conduct heat well are called good conductors of heat. Substances that do not conduct heat are called poor conductors of heat or insulators.